Good evening. It is right at 7 o'clock, and you know how I am. Sooner started, sooner finished, right? It's great to have so many folks here. I think this might be a record attendance for our town hall. I should threaten you all with a capital campaign more often, I think. So, just kidding. No, I don't like it any more than you do. Let's get started tonight. Andy, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Our agenda for tonight, what we're going to cover, and our goal is transparent leadership for the parish. This is the 5th time we've had a town hall here at St. Jude. We do this every January, maybe early February, some years, depending on how the calendar falls. It is my sincere desire, and I hope that this shows beyond just the town hall, but it's my sincere desire that you as parishioners have the information that you need to feel confident in the leadership of St. Jude, that you feel that we are being responsible stewards of your stewardship, and the time, the talent, and the treasure that you pour into this parish, and that you know that we're not keeping secrets, we're not hiding things. I was talking to a priest friend of mine today and said that I was doing this, and he said, I don't know anybody else who really does that. And I said, well, I think there's a culture sometimes in the church because of things like confessions and other things that have to be kept secret, that we just kind of inadvertently cover a lot of things with secrecy that we don't need to. So this is kind of peel back the covers a little bit and make sure that you have the information that you need. Tonight we're going to look at some staffing additions. We're going to look at some statistics of the parish for the past year. We're going to highlight our youth and adult ministries, financials, and then the capital campaign. As I said on the weekend, the state of the parish part is going to be a little bit more brief this year so that we have plenty of time for the capital campaign section. Any questions that you have, though, either we can address them tonight or you and I can communicate later about them. We can sit down or we can talk about it over email or the phone or whatever you need. I want you to have your questions answered. All right, next slide, Andy. Staffing additions. Of course, maybe our most visible new staff member is Father Roscoe, our associate pastor. Father Roscoe was ordained in June of 2024 and arrived here the 1st of July 2024. Here he is with a lovely couple on the day of their wedding. We also, in the summer, hired Evan Hassett as our bookkeeper. Our longtime bookkeeper, Kelly Parish, gave her resignation in the spring. Evan is a brand new graduate of IU in Kokomo, lives with his wife and his young son on the north side. He's been a great addition. He's very friendly. He is unfortunately a Notre Dame fan, but we can't be perfect, right? In the fall, we were joined by Allison Heller as our coordinator of religious education. Allison had previously worked for St. John the Evangelist in downtown Indy. She had told them that she would work through the National Eucharistic Congress. She took a month off. We happened to post an opening. If you've interacted with Allison, she's a lovely young woman, very passionate about the faith and about sharing the faith, and I think our formation programs have really benefited from her contributions. Just this past week, we were joined by Colleen Pingle as our new director of music. She also brings a lot of energy and experience. She was most recently director of music for the cathedral in Lafayette, Indiana. Daniel Padilla, who joined us in November as our interim music director, will be continuing as our regular accompanist. I do want to say, some people have asked why Daniel was only interim director and not regular director, and his goal and plan is to go to law school in the fall, and we wanted some chance at stability there, so we're happy that he's joined us on a regular basis as our accompanist. And then Matthew Straley, Director of Buildings and Grounds. Matthew came in August, and Matthew is a quiet worker but a hard worker, and has really hit the ground running and gotten a lot done. All right, next slide, Andy, and you can just go on to the next one. Number of households. We currently have 1,521 registered households, which translates to 4,516 registered individual parishioners, so that's children on up. And in 2024, we had 91 new households join St. Jude. This is, I say this every year, we really work to keep accurate our counts. It's helpful, it keeps our mailing costs low, it keeps our sense of who we are more accurate. So these are up-to-date numbers as best as we can. Next slide. On the left, we have mass attendance for the year. In January of 2024, our average mass attendance was 1,282 people a weekend. In December of 2024, our average attendance was 1,387 a weekend. Our highest months in 2024 were March and November. March, we averaged 1,579. Was Easter in March last year? So that throws that off a little bit for March. But in November, we averaged 1,528 people a weekend, which we didn't have any real special reason to have that. But I want you to Andy, can you go back one slide for me? We have 4,516 registered parishioners, and our highest normal month of mass attendance is 1,500 people a week. More on that later. Back to the mass attendance and sacraments slide. Thank you, Andy. In 2024, we performed 81 baptisms, 84 confirmations, 8 marriages, and 31 funerals. That is a high for us in baptisms and confirmations for the past 6 years, really. It is close to a high for marriages and about average for funerals. We do 30 to 40 funerals a year here at St. Jude. Any questions about those numbers? All right, next slide, Andy. Our youth ministry. Our high school youth retreat in November, we had 70 high schoolers attend the weekend retreat here at St. Jude in November. Really a fantastic showing. We had high school students from across the deanery come here to St. Jude for a weekend. They prayed together, they ate, they ate a lot. I went over for a couple of meals with them. They had a lot of games, a lot of good times. They had some peer witness talks, other high school students who had been mentored through our youth ministry sharing about their life of faith in an effort to encourage their peers by example. It was a really fantastic thing. A couple weeks ago, we had a junior high lock-in event, just till 10, 11 p.m. It's not, we don't want to do a lock-in like, overnight with junior high kids. I wouldn't have any staff left. But we had 28 7th and 8th graders here for about 8 hours, lots of gym games. But the highlight for me was coming over in the evening and seeing 28 7th and 8th graders spread throughout this church for about 45 minutes of Eucharistic adoration. You could hear a pin drop. They were keyed in. They were praying. It was a really, really beautiful event. Our high school youth group meets 3 out of 4 Sundays a month, and it's right after the 10 o'clock Mass. They go over, they have a lunch, they have an activity and a talk, and our attendance on those Sundays ranges from 30 to 55, which makes us really the top youth group by numbers in the deanery. It's really been fantastic to see our youth ministry growing. Junior high meets on Tuesdays after the 6 p.m. Mass. If you come to 6 p.m. Mass, you'll almost always see between 1 and 4 junior high kids serving Mass before they go over to youth group. They love it. And attendance for the junior high ranges from 15 to 35. What I'm maybe most excited about is our high school youth participation at Mass. We have high school students who serve as lectors, they serve on the altar as MCs, they serve as sacristans and Mass coordinators, they serve as extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion. In every way that the lay faithful can participate in Mass, our high school students are participating. And they do it joyfully. They're excited about it. They enjoy it. They come to me and how do I become a lector? How do I become a extraordinary minister? They're really engaging in the practice of the faith, which I think is the most important thing. All right, next slide. Our Rome pilgrimage last June, we had 8 pilgrims. This coming year, we anticipate 9. Sorry, I reviewed this 3 times and still missed that typo. 9 are anticipated in 2025. We attend daily Mass. We go to a lot of churches and other Catholic landmarks. We attend the Sunday general audience in St. Peter's Square with Pope Francis and have his blessing there. And then that is open to our graduating MCs and sacristans who serve throughout high school in such admirable ways. The big picture there is Deacon Liam Hosty and Mr. Tim Chrisman, who were 2 of the adult assistants on that trip, and our youth right in front of them going up to the Church of Araceli on the Capitoline Hill there in Rome. So, fantastic. All right, next slide. Our adult ministries, we currently have 21 people in RCIA, 21 adults who are seeking to become in full communion with the Catholic Church. That is a fantastic number. It's the biggest, I believe, since I've been here in the last 5.5 years. I will confess, RCIA is one of those things that just kind of befuddles me. Some years we have 21, some years we have 1. And I don't really know how to effectively turn that into, could we have 10 every year? Could we, but it's great. And this group is really, again, just a keyed in group. They ask great questions and they're on fire. Together in Holiness Circles, Together in Holiness is the marriage renewal program that we had here last spring. We have 3 circles that continued on to meet small groups after the conference. We had 30 people participate in the Jesus and the Eucharist Lenten series. We had 18 attend our evangelization training program, Mission Possible. That was this month? December. And then our monthly pub talks that had been focused around the National Eucharistic Revival and now are continuing on with varying themes. Those are held at Gallagher's the second Monday of the month. It varies now, okay. If you haven't picked up, Tammy Stewart is the keeper of my memory and all important things. All right, next slide. I want to announce this. This is an upcoming program for adults. It's called The Rescue Project. It comes out of Detroit. My memory has failed me. It's developed by a Catholic priest and some of his staff, and it focuses on our stories, our lives as stories, our personal, individual stories. It has a twofold focus. Number one is that all of us are in need of a rescue. We all are sinners in need of a Savior. And so this program helps us to be able to articulate and to map out that need in us to be saved and how our story has been rescued and will be rescued and is continuing to rescue us. But it also begins to equip us to share stories with other people. And so I really invite you, if you have questions, please see Tammy after the meeting or call her or email her later. It starts on Sundays, starting on Sunday, February 16th at 6 p.m. There's a meal included in the meeting. So come for a meal. There's a video that you'll watch, and then there's some table small group discussion. You won't have to stand up in front of everybody and, share your tragic life history. You can come to my office and do that privately, but you won't have to do that in front of a group of strangers. This is small group oriented. I cannot encourage enough your participation in renewing your gratitude for what God has done in your life and equipping you to begin to go out and have those conversations with others. Remember back to the beginning of the presentation, those numbers, the statistics. 70% of our registered parishioners are not at Mass on any given Sunday. 70%. I was at Parish Council last night and sharing we have a lot of good news at St. Jude. Lots of good news. So don't misunderstand me. But one of the Parish Council members asked one of the most astute questions any Parish Council member has ever asked me in my 15 years of priesthood. He said, "Well, what's keeping you up at night?" And I said, the fact that 70% of our parishioners aren't coming to Mass on a regular basis. I am not the person to condemn anyone, but I worry that if we're never going to Mass, we might be gambling with our souls. And that keeps me up at night. That's not even the unchurched that surround us in the neighborhood. That's our parishioners. They said, we want to belong to St. Jude. How do we get them to come? The homilies might be boring, but at least they're short. We do the best we can for that. So how do we begin to speak to the people that used to be here, but aren't now? And in my experience, most of these folks are not absent because they're angry about something. They're absent because they missed once or twice, and then it just kind of became easier to miss than to come. And so how do we renew that relationship with God and the parish? All right, I got other things to talk about, but this is the passion for the year, and it begins with the rescue project. All right, next slide. Parish Festival. That's an awkward typing. We raised $54,140 at the Parish Festival. Through Friday night, we were ahead of 2023, but then it rained on Saturday. And we still had all the costs for having a festival on Saturday night, but none of the profit. So don't be discouraged. I think that this year God's going to bless us with great weather, and we'll have a great festival. That festival committee, my goodness, they work all year long. They work really, really hard. They do a phenomenal job, and so invite your friends, family, neighbors to come to the festival this year. The festival funds, and I'll talk again about this, are part of our annual contribution to the St. Jude long-term maintenance savings account. So the profits generated by the festival form the biggest part of what goes every year into our long-term maintenance savings account. Next slide. Finances, parish collections. We raised $943,053 in 2024. Now, this is not a fiscal year, this is a calendar year, okay? So we raised $943,000. You can see by the little line graph there, we're on a good, positive, solid trajectory in our parish collections. The annual stewardship renewal has really helped us to all think about and pray about and see our contributions as part of our lives of discipleship, and that's really been helpful and beneficial for us there. All right, next slide. Our contributing households, 1,164 out of 1,521 contributed something to the general offertory in 2024. Now, these numbers can be a little bit off because if you just throw a $20 bill in the collection basket, that doesn't necessarily get tracked to you. In order to be tracked to you, we need a check or an envelope or online giving through Faith Direct, any of those ways we can say. So that number may not be 100% accurate. There may be families who contribute through just loose cash in the collection plate. But that's been a fairly steady number for the last couple of years. It's up from 2020, obviously, where we saw a big dip due to the COVID conditions. It is a slight decrease from the year before. It's small enough, it's statistically insignificant. I don't really know what might have caused that. Okay, next slide, Andy. Our operating expense breakdown, our largest category for expenses continue to be staff salaries and benefits. Our second largest is maintenance, facility administration and maintenance expenses. Then the Arch Indy assessments, those are set in two ways. Generally speaking, they're usually set either as a percentage of our collections, which always feels a bit like being punished for doing right. to me, but I get it. I get why they do it that way. Or by size of congregation. And so based on those two numbers is generally how those assessments are set. Our St. Jude school support, we contribute $270,000 a year from the parish as a subsidy to the school, the grade school. We have one of the largest parish subsidies in the Archdiocese because our school is 80% of our students receive vouchers and 20% do not. And so, and I've kept our poor Mrs. Meese, she puts up with a lot from me. I've kept our tuition fairly low. Our parishioner rate tuition is one of the lowest in the city because of that 20% of our students that do not receive vouchers. I don't want them to be pinched too much, right? So we've been very thoughtful in raising that, but that then necessitates a large parish subsidy to the tune of over $250,000. I will continue to point out that priests are the cheapest thing you can get. We're only 7.2% of the annual budget. That's both of us. Next slide, Andy. A little bit of a breakdown on budget to actual on the expense side. Clergy costs, see, I'm not only cheap, I'm coming in under budget. Staff salaries and benefits, a little bit high over budget, but not terribly bad. That part of that was when we went from a part-time faith formation coordinator to a full-time faith formation coordinator, things of that nature. So we're pretty in line there. The Archdiocese announced the cut, a slight decrease in one of their assessments after we had already budgeted. So that's why we're not withholding money from the Archdiocese. Yes. Yes, that's the first 6 months of this fiscal year. Yes. Yes. So this is the first 6 months of the current fiscal year. Which is why you can see the total for the year will be about 270 for the school budget, but it's currently at 137. Yes. I'm sorry? That is the state funding, is the vouchers. Yes. No. No, that's how long have vouchers been around? 5, 10 years, 7 years? Yeah. So it's relatively recent, and it started with pretty strict, vouchers started with pretty strict income requirements, and every budget from the state, they've increased those income eligibility requirements. We are very hopeful that this budget cycle will see them remove any income restrictions on education vouchers, and and everybody will be then receiving their tax dollars, a portion of their tax dollars that they can use for their child's education. All right, next slide, Andy. Thank you. A quick look at our annual stewardship renewal. 36.8%, or 559 out of 1,518 of our families turned in a stewardship renewal card of any kind. That's an increase of 5.5% from the year before. We want to keep pushing that. That included 4,777 prayer commitments, 2,345 volunteer commitments, and 459 offertory commitments. That's astounding. The level to which you and your fellow parishioners are committing to pray, to volunteer, to contribute financially, to tithe, is really, really fantastic. And I continue to be very blessed and very grateful by that. All right, next slide. Now, the capital campaign. Go one more slide here, Andy. Thank you. These are our four large categories of projects that we want to engage in the capital campaign. The first is some rather urgent HVAC needs in the school, the church, the gym, etc. We're cheating a little bit because the narthex, I don't know if you remember, in the weeks leading up to Christmas, people kept complaining that the church was cold. The narthex units completely out. So we had to replace those. They're going to get paid for by the capital campaign. The gym HVAC is completely done for. I've had a couple people ask me about repairing it. It has been repaired, but the coolant that it runs on is no longer for sale. I am allowed to purchase it right now on a secondary market for an outrageous amount of expense, and then that will just last until it leaks out again. And so it's time. We have to replace that. It's time also to replace both the boiler, the heater, and the chiller in the school building. I don't know if you know this. If boilers in schools are inspected by the Department of Homeland Security, so I don't know, but they are. And it's time to replace our school boiler and chillers and things. So we have $500,000 plus in HVAC needs. The roof, we're going to replace the entire roof. Those of you who have been here for a while will correctly say it was replaced 15 years ago, and it is a 30-year roof, but it leaks in multiple places, and we've had people come out. We've looked at spot repairs. We've looked at multiple things. It is what it is. So that's going to cost us about $250,000. We'll get more into detail with a new rectory coming up in just a moment. And then to replace the font, the baptismal font, and we usually call this a screen. Its technical term in church architecture is a reredos, which is a word that delights Lucy Bedwell. She loves that word. It's a reredos, to be a wall behind the altar. And the baptismal font is leaking and has to be torn out. It just can't be repaired as it is. Water seeps through the inner tile lining and is rotting the wood supports, and then seeps out as moisture through the limestone cladding. Again, we've had 3 plumbers come out different ways. When I went to the Archdiocese about this, the Archdiocesan engineer said, oh yeah, those were super popular 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and every one of them has problems. It is what it is. Those of you who go back to 1998 at St. Jude, remember that when you and Father Kirchhoff built this beautiful church building, there is just a doorway behind that screen. I have been assured this is a fairly true story. The Father Jerry and whoever from the church and the builders met one last time for approval at the Archdiocese, and the Archdiocesan engineer said, you need another exit in the back of the church. And so the architect took out his pencil and drew a doorway. Maybe he meant to do something with that later, come back to the plan, but he never did. And so there was just a doorway behind the altar. Father Steve made a good decision to put a decorative screen back there, and that served us well. I am proposing that we replace that with something a bit more permanent, a bit more architecturally designed, that also will match the baptismal font, so that we have a visual tie between the two sacraments, between the sacrament of baptism, which welcomes us into the church, and the sacrament of the Eucharist here in the sanctuary for that. And we'll explore that visually in just a moment. Next slide, Andy. As I mentioned, the HVAC really touches the heart of the campus as we continue with the school, the gym, the narthex. If I have to go out and panhandle money, we will have AC in that gym by the festival. I can't do it. So, next slide, Andy. Let's look at the baptismal font that's been proposed by an architect, Chip Williams. We're moving away from plumbing concerns. We're moving into a altar shape or a baptismal font shape that is a bit more serviceable for us. One of the things when he showed this to me, I said, oh, there's a spot for my book and the oils and the candles. Nothing is teetering on an edge about to fall into a pool of water. So as a person who celebrates a lot of baptisms, I really appreciated that. He has written out, it's a little bit hard to see here, but the lettering says, he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire, which is a line from our gospel from this past Sunday. A nice scriptural reference there. He's included a couple of decorative elements like a shell there on the end, a brass shell. It will be finished, covered in marble tile. So it's not a solid marble piece, but marble tile. We will be changing the floor in some way. I'd like to, I'm talking to the architect about ways to incorporate the current limestone cladding, which goes back to the 1959 church, which is now the cafeteria. So we're working on some ways to keep our history as a church engaged in our new endeavors. Next slide, Andy. This would be the view from the back, the main entrance there. We have Kurt Kramer standing there by the font to welcome you in there. The architect is not big on eyes. None of his stand-in people have eyes. But you can see then how this visually ties with the proposed reredos, the font to the reredos. When I talk to RCIA, I give a tour of the church, and I tell them that Catholic church architecture sees that our font is always in the back as an entry into the church, right? You come in to the church through the waters of baptism. And then the aisle, as you progress down the aisle, this is the journey of life from baptism to heaven, right? And so the sanctuary is always representative of heaven. It's where God comes down to the altar. And so I'd like for us to architecturally move there. The wall will be, the reredos will be covered in the same marble tile that the font is in. It is, as Tammy Stewart pointed out, it is a tall wall. You can see that it goes up almost to the bottom white stone framing the rose window in the back wall. The light shade of marble is intentional. We have a beautiful church, beautiful, beautiful church. But it can sometimes, in some light, be a little dark. And so the light shade of marble helps to bring some light in and brighten up the church just a bit. Next slide, Andy. Thank you. Yes. For the 150th time, yes, these are architectural drawings of the baptismal font and the reredos. They have nothing to do with anything else. If you look at this picture of the reredos, you see that we are using and incorporating the limestone slab that the tabernacle currently sits on into the new reredos, and we will be switching to a new hanging tabernacle light. This is an up kind of angle view just to show you the dimensions. The width of the new reredos are the exact same as the current wood screen. Yes. The floor of the sanctuary. Yes, again, the pictures are only of the reredos and the baptismal font. They refer to nothing else. The floor of the sanctuary cannot be changed without a lot of jackhammering. This is poured concrete with tile cemented to it. So all the pictures, say it with me, all the pictures refer only to the font and the reredos. They don't reference anything else in the church. I would tell you, if we were going to change the floor, if we're going to move the statues, if we're going to do anything else, just look at the font and the reredos. Yes. We're getting a whole new sanctuary. No, just the lamp. Just the lamp, the tabernacle lamp. So it's going to hang there by the tabernacle. Yes. You keep that up, and I'll be wearing your name tag. Something about the altar looking different. Yes, ma'am. There is, because I legally cannot fill in that door. Yes, yes. Just like this screen is, it's going to be a wall that's freestanding. Yes, so I don't know if we will use the same back cross, but the same crucifix. So that's two pieces. It's a crucifix and then a larger plain wood cross. I don't think we need the plain wood cross. We might put it somewhere else on campus, but the crucifix will stay and hang on the new wall. It is the original one from 1959. So it's important that we keep that. But it'll fit in that space a little bit better and show much better against the light marble than against the brown cinder block. Yes? The tile is white. It is, the architect will choose it to coordinate. Yes. Yes. Right. Right. Yes. I, I think it's not going to be, the marble tile is not, it doesn't show up real well here. It shows up better on the poster board. It's not white. It's cloudy white. So I think that it will be better, and the architect is aware of these issues as he chooses the material. Yes. 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 I don't think it'll be any worse than this window right here. No. You'll need to wear sunscreen to mass now, Paul. Thank you. Next slide. I thought this was going to be the difficult slide. Proposal for a new rectory. In the last capital campaign, we had a little bit of musical chairs happen here on campus. And the old convent, which for 20-some years had served as the parish offices, became the new ELM, the new preschool. And so then we had to move the offices. And the offices moved to the old offices and rectory, built in 69, 70, somewhere around there. Originally built as an office rectory combo, the diocese will no longer allow you to build an office rectory combo. So when we moved the offices back to that building, Father Steve did live there for a couple of months while the new White House rectory was finished up, and then he moved into there for a few months. That poor guy, I mean, he moved, he had offices invade his space, then he moved for just a few months, and then he moved again for retirement. In that move, that musical chairs move, we went from a large rectory with 3 priest suites to a smaller 1930s farmhouse with 2 bedrooms that include their own bathroom, but we definitely lost space in that move. And so stay with me as I walk you through the floor plans and the rationale for a new rectory at the same time. Here is the proposed exterior. The bottom picture is the view from McFarland Road. And the top picture is the view from the football field, our football field. Next slide, Andy. Here is the interior floor plan. At the top is the back wall, which will look out towards the football field. At the bottom, is the view towards McFarland Road. All right? We have 2 identical, more or less, priest suites on this floor, entered into off the kitchen area of the communal space in the middle. At the top is a kitchen area, at the middle is a dining area, and towards the McFarland side is a living room, entertaining area. We have laundry and a half bath over on that side. The room on the bottom, without any arrows pointing to it, is a designated chapel prayer space for the residents of the rectory. It'll have a place for me to say a mass on my day off. for me to pray the Liturgy of the Hours every day, a nice, quiet, contemplative space for your priests. You can see then the stairwell going down. Andy, next slide, please. Downstairs, we have 2 guest bedrooms with a full bath across the hallway there, a kitchenette and a living room space, and then in a kind of a U shape around the outside, storage. We will be getting rid of the yellow garage, which stores some festival supplies, so we've incorporated that space down below. It's fine to have folks come in and get something from the house once a year for the festival. I wouldn't want to store anything down there that's used on a more frequent basis, but once a year is fine. It also, one of the things I pointed out to the design team looking at drawing this up is I get moved fairly regularly, and I still have 18 years before I can ask the Archbishop to retire. So I have a whole set of plastic permanent totes to move in that I keep in the basement. So we have some extra storage needs as priests. Andy, can you go back one slide for me? When we look at how a priest lives in an attempt to live healthy, happy, and holy lives, we look at the fact that priests who work together do not apply to work together. We are asked, we're voluntold by the Archbishop that this is going to be your ministry team. It often works fairly well because, you know, I'm a delight. It works fairly well, but I want you to think about you then going home and living with your boss. Now, some of you I know will say, well, Father, that's married life. But Father Roscoe and I are not going to cuddle up on a couch and watch a movie together. We would love to have dinner together more regularly, and living together in a purpose-made rectory will enable us to live, to eat together, to pray together, those kinds of things more regularly. But then poor Father Roscoe should not be subjected to my weird British detective shows for watching TV. We also need enough space to kind of be apart when we need to be apart and be together when we need to be together. The current White Rectory is by far the nicest rectory I have ever lived in. Father Steve and the parishioners who are here, you all did a great job of finishing that space out, of rehabbing it from a farmhouse. It's just, it's smaller on the inside than it looks on the outside. Right, Kathleen? It's lovely, but it is really not big enough for 2 unrelated grown men to live together in peace and harmony with that. And so I'm proposing that we build a new rectory. The most frequent question that have been asked over the past year or so as I've been having these conversations is, what if we don't have an associate pastor someday? Fair question. Absolutely fair question. I cannot predict the future. There may be a time when we again don't have an associate pastor. That is a fair question. My question in response, though, is should we plan for a generous future or should we plan for a small future? I want us to plan for a generous future. I want us to plan for a future of success. And if we don't have that, if God does not grant us an associate pastor down the road, then we have spent some money. It's only money. We've spent some money, but we have prepared ourselves to receive God's blessings when he chooses to bless us. That's my view on this. I am not saying St. Jude will always have an associate pastor. I can say that the Archbishop's plan is, as long as he keeps me working 3 jobs, his plan is to let me have an associate pastor. I can say that. But that could also change. The Archbishop could say, I got a new plan for Brute, so that all changes. So do not hear me promise or guarantee or stake my reputation on us always having 2 priests. I don't know. What I am asking for is, will you step out in faith and say, we want to be ready for the possibility of 2 priests? The downstairs rooms are for a summer seminarian. We will probably have those on a regular basis. It also provides a space, if God blesses us and raises up a young man from St. Jude to go to the seminary, that he can stay on breaks and things at the rectory, which after a certain age becomes a little bit more comfortable than going home to mom and dad, because you've already turned his room into a craft room anyway, right? So we have that room. It allows for a personal guest for the priest and a seminarian at the same time, or a missionary priest to stay in one of those rooms. So 2 guest rooms down there. It also gives them that space with a little kitchenette, a sink and a microwave and a dorm fridge that, you know, if they're tired of me, how could you be tired of me? If they're tired of the next pastor, they can have their morning coffee down there or whatever and have some space that is theirs. I will say, as a seminarian and as a priest, there is a sense sometimes that space isn't really yours. And so I'm conscious of that. I want to give that to a future seminarian, a future associate pastor, to say, this is your space. You belong here. This is your home. Make it your space. And
Hello?
Yes.
Where is Father Roscoe living now?
Good question. Father Roscoe lives at the house abutting Roncalli, the big columns outside. It's not really a Federalist style, but they're trying to be a Federalist style house there, right next to Roncalli. Roncalli bought that house a year ago. We've rented it. We did some work to fix it up. By we, I mean Mariabella did some work to fix it up, and Lucy and Kathleen and lots of people made it very welcoming for Father Roscoe. Roncalli is giving us a pretty good deal on rent. We trade favors back and forth regularly, but it's their house, and they may want to tear it down someday. They may want to use it for office space, whatever. So Father Prakash, we rented a house, his backyard connected to our woods on Dudley, or off Dudley, and he had a lovely little time there. But this is a more permanent kind of solution. Yes, we will be saving money by building our own space. The second most popular question that I've been asked over the last year or so is, what happens to the White House? Great question. I'm glad you asked. Great question. Part of doing a campaign is so that we don't have to make an immediate or rushed decision about the White House. We can hold on to it, raise the money. We don't need to sell it to build a new rectory. We can keep it. We might rent it to a retired priest. we might turn the downstairs into an adoration chapel. I would love to have an adoration chapel where we could do adoration and not have to send out a notice, hey, sorry, we got a funeral on Monday, no adoration this week until noon, that kind of thing. Plus, you'd be amazed at how many times I have to say, well, we can't do that on Monday because we've got adoration. So those are ideas that we are spinning around. Nothing is set in stone except that we are not selling it, at least in the foreseeable future. I don't like to sell property, so I'd like for us to find a use for it, but right now there's nothing that's really concrete about that. Where the yellow house used to be, where the yellow garage is, between the White House and the main campus. We own all of that land. Any other questions on this? Yes, Murph. This is the plan that I have paid for, drawn up by Tom McKeon's company, parishioner here. And we have been through, we've workshopped this a fair amount to get it. All right, next slide, Andy. All right, some other costs in this. This wording is not quite right, and I didn't realize that until I was reviewing it right before this. The Archdiocese requires us to set aside 10% of construction costs into our endowment. So it's not requiring we send them 10%, it's that we endow 10% of costs for future maintenance issues. Issues always arise if you've ever built anything, a dog house, a bird house, a house for your family, and whatever, issues arrive. And then there's always consultant fees for the capital campaign and architects and those kinds of things that also result in just some costs. We're hoping to raise, next slide, Andy, $1.8 million total. That covers our costs. I'll be real honest with you, I'd be a little bit more comfortable if we raised $2 million. And the reason for that is historically about 8% of capital campaign pledges go unfulfilled. And so if we could push our pledges to about $2 million, I'd feel more comfortable that we'd get $1.8 million. All right. That is a lot. That has been an hour. Anything else that you need answered tonight to feel good about being a parishioner at St. Jude? I take it to Vegas. No. So Jim asked, what if we raise more money than we need? There are a few lingering little projects around. Our two projectors here in the church are nearing the end of their natural born life. The good news is that these projectors originally cost $50,000 apiece. To replace them will only cost $50,000 total. That's good news, right? Beth has a room in the school that she'd like to renovate. We estimate about a $20,000 cost to turn that into a more usable space in the school. Once we get those other little projects knocked off, anything will be split evenly between the parish and the school endowments. We currently have, I'm guessing a little bit here, but I have the real numbers on my computer. About 550,000 in the school endowment and about 400,000 in the parish endowment. The endowments I can't touch, right? Yes, we have them. And the school draws, so the Arch allows us a 4% drawdown on those endowments every year. The school uses its drawdown as a contribution to the long-term maintenance savings account. We use the parish drawdown to support the Rome trip costs for the youth that go to that. Yes, but the the Phil, I saw you walk in, didn't I? Yeah. Phil, can you come down here for a second? I have a very technical question, and I don't want to get it wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Phil Agresta, accountant extraordinaire. So Mary Jo's asking if we have currently excess operating income. Is that true? Yes. Okay, yeah, I'll repeat it here. Hold on. So Mary Jo's question is, the numbers up here showed potentially a operating surplus through the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Right. So are we restricted in using those funds? The answer is no, but we are on the hook for the school until the second voucher payment arrives from the state. Right, that's why we have a June to June fiscal year. Right. So the question is, at the end of the fiscal year, if we have surplus, what happens to that surplus? Two things that are really important to keep in mind. The parish is never budgeted to really have a surplus. And in the 5 years that I've been here, I don't think we've ever ended up with more than about $40,000 on the parish side. The school occasionally does run a surplus, and the preschool every year runs a surplus, and that's about $60,000. Beth and I have an agreement that school surplus is split between the parish and the school because we support it, and so it comes back to us. So at the end of the fiscal year, there is about a $30,000 to $60,000 surplus that comes back. Beth budgets that into things like a new reading curriculum for the school. That's her portion. Our portion is usually spent pretty immediately on maintenance needs, on current maintenance needs. Like, for example, you may have noticed the pipe that was dug up over New Year's at the preschool. That was a 70-year-old sewage pipe, clay sewage pipe that collapsed, and obviously you got to fix that. We are expecting that bill to come in around $40,000 to $60,000. So there goes the surplus for this year on that. Right. Right. So a great question. So what are we doing to plan for the future? Right. That is a great question. 3 years, you can go, sorry. All right, come on. You want to preach this weekend? 3 years ago, the Finance Council and I sat down and looked at this very question. How do we stop kind of chasing our tail on we know we're going to regularly have big maintenance needs. We have big buildings with roofs and HVAC system. How do we plan for this? So we created at the Archdiocesan Savings and Loan, if you will. It's called the Archdiocesan Loan Fund, or the ADLF, a new savings account for St. Jude, the long-term maintenance savings account. Every year we put in the proceeds from the festival, that draw down from the school endowment, and about $20,000 out of our operating. And so this year, that's obviously going to be a little bit lower because the festival profit was lower. But it's around $90,000 to $120,000 a year. 1 year, we did not make a payment because we had about $100,000 of immediate deferred maintenance needs. So we did some caulking around windows and the cafeteria roof and some things. But we have about $250,000 in that account, Phil. That's part of our standard budget. Right. So we are planning for the future as responsibly as we can with this long-term maintenance account. It just needs to sit for a while, right? Just like our retirement accounts. We need to not touch that for these needs. And frankly, it's too small now to really make any one of the pressing needs that we have. Good. Yes. Right. So what's the time frame on doing these projects? Number one to know is the Archdiocese will not really let us start doing work until 100% of cost has been pledged and 50% has been in hand. Now, we can fudge that a little bit in some different ways to get that, but that's the general rule is for building. Obviously, we have some of our HVAC needs that need to be advanced on that, and we have a plan for that. We'll be okay with that. But also, costs keep going up. And so we want to start, and Phil and the Finance Council and I are discussing what's the most fiscally responsible way to capture current prices and not 3 years from now prices. And so we're looking at, the Archdiocese will loan us money. That's what we did for the last campaign. It's called a bridge loan or a construction loan. They'll loan us money. Is their interest rate lower than what we think inflation might be on construction costs? So we're looking at that, but this will be rolling out over the next 3 years. Yes? No, these are best estimate quotes from our providers on those costs. We're pretty locked in on the HVAC costs because we can trust that provider more or less. Yes. Excellent. So the HVAC and the roof are top priority. HVAC and the roof, top priority. That's what the money goes towards first. Some of the HVAC, particularly in the school, we've got some Lilly employees who are giving that will receive some matching funds. Those are restricted to the school. They cannot be spent on the church building. So there's some ways that we need to maneuver with that to get that done. That's the top priority. The rectory and the font are the secondary priorities for happening. So we'll come to that as needed. Name tags are never a priority, Michael. All right? Yes, Paul, sorry.
You know, in all this stuff that we talked about, things that I wonder, where do they show up? The early learning center, little revenue, how are those?
The early learning ministry, the preschool, is a sub-ministry of the school. And so Beth oversees Nicole, who is the director of the ELM in the old convent building. The Little Royals rent space from us. This was a deal that Father Steve and Joe Shelburne worked out with Ron Colley before I arrived. And they pay their rent on time. Yeah. Ron Colley is midterm planning to bring that on campus and do their own thing with that. And then we'll have that space freed up for our ministries. But they pay a reasonable rent. Okay, yes.
We had plans a year or so ago with this plans to do something.
Yeah, the leaky roof surpassed that. I'd like to do some refreshing work in the narthex. Nothing, not a gut job, but we've got some cracked tiles and we could use a new coat of paint in the narthex, and maybe there's some ways to make coffee and donut Sundays a little bit easier on our volunteers to set things up a little bit differently. I still would like to do that, but it doesn't look like that's going to be in this campaign. Partly because the price tag that came back on that is also a lot. Okay, listen, thank you so much. I'm sorry that we went over time. Two last things. My door is always open. You are always welcome to come in, sit down with me. I've been told that I am scary, but I promise you I am not. You can come in, you can disagree with me, we can have some back and forth. I mean that. You're always welcome. You're always welcome to email me. Chris Cheney, if you know who he is, he's our Director of Ministry Operations. He has a wealth of information, so if you can't stand the thought of sitting down with me, you can talk to Chris. Tammy Stewart will comfort you after talking to me. Whatever it is, I am here for you. Please don't hesitate for that. Thank you. God bless. Grab a prayer card for the campaign in the narthex on your way out. Good night. Oh, good. Good.